Evening. Thank you for being here. We're here tonight to take a look at our FY16 draft budget. And this presentation tonight will include a review of FY15, the current year that we're in now, the FY16 budget process, FY16 influencing factors on the budget, a detail by category, expected revenues, and then any questions. At this time, I am also asking if everyone could hold their questions until the end of the presentation, because it will just help us go right on through. And then once we're done, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Okay? So let's start by doing a quick review of FY15, and that is our current year. And yes, that is Nolan Muganda with the orange hair. So, in order to provide an education, we must transport our students to and from school, and this year's budget, $2,639,165, which is an increase over FY14 budget by $86,086. As in most of the categories, the increase reflected is in the negotiated salary increase, and we are now putting a step salary increase in FY16, but we did have a step increase this year, so that's that step increase. In addition, there were increases in contracted buses and lease payments. Next, we will need well-maintained buildings in which to educate our students. Operation of plant, $3,320,487. Maintenance of plant, $1,175,252, which is an overall increase of $59,284 from the FY14 budget. Teachers, support staff, administrators, curriculum support, all of these are needed to educate our students. These are included in the categories of instructional salaries, mid-level administration, and administration. And all of these with significant reductions even in mid-level administration. Overall, these categories combined are actually $6,792 less than the previous year. Instead of requesting additional funding, we redirected funding for new teacher program mentoring. And instead of asking for more teachers, we moved teachers from the secondary level to the elementary level to assist with smaller class size at the elementary level. Fixed charges, which includes retirement, teacher pensions, Social Security, health insurance, life insurance, workman's comp, and unemployment are a significant challenge for the private and public sector alike. In FY15 this year, the budget for this category is $10,963,675. This is an increase of $565,536 from FY14 due to health insurance increases. However, it is important to note that this year we also used $900,000 from the ESMEC Trust Fund. I will discuss this critical element in further detail when I explain the item in the FY16 draft budget. Once we transport our students to school, we have teachers and staff ready to provide instruction. We need materials of instruction. The category of textbooks and instructional supplies is budgeted at $524,371, which is $23,185 less than FY14. Other instructional costs is a decrease of $44,761 compared to FY14. Some specialized services are required to provide adequate support for our students. The special ed budget is an increase of $38,341 from last year, and pupil personnel services is a decrease of $7,618 from FY14. When a cost per pupil comparison is used to compare combined local and state funding, $10,336 per pupil was spent in FY14, and $10,274 per pupil is in this current year's FY15 budget. We are actually spending $64 less per student this year than last year. This number includes all pre-K students. which we do not receive funding for, by the way. Here is a listing of items that are included in the current FY15 budget and their related costs. Just to let you know, pre-K, we have a total of 231 students in pre-K. Out of the 231 students, 127 are mandatory, even though it's an unfunded mandatory. There are 2.5 teachers for the additional students so that we are able to have what is called universal pre-K, which is pre-K for all of our students that are eligible for pre-K. And we also must consider transportation of those students as well. So I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the things that we do spend our money on that may not be totally in a separate category, but that are woven throughout. Because when you look at summer school, you're also looking at transportation and you're looking at salaries. When you're looking at athletic transportation, that's in the transportation budget. But I just wanted you to see some of those items. Before I begin discussing the FY16 draft budget proposal, I'd like to take a few minutes to describe the budget process. Dr. Sprinkle, you know Clifton, don't you? He is just a joy, truly. So let's begin with June. We surveyed our staff at the end of 13-14 school year, and we made a concerted effort this year to engage the public in the budget process. So I have attended many of the back-to-school nights, many of the sporting orientations, community events, and had conversations with community members and public officials. Public engagement has also included Facebook, website, and surveys. October 2014, we began with our official student enrollment numbers from September 30th, 2014. Our principals, school managers, and supervisors meet with their staff to determine the needs of the school and throughout the district. These needs are prioritized into 3 categories, high, medium, and low, and they begin with a zero-based budget, and then they produce a budget based on the needs assessments and the discussions with their staff. And then the principals do submit the budget request by the end of October. In November, they're submitted to senior staff, at which time all data from surveys, community event comments, and budget submissions are reviewed. Many cuts in the area of low priority are cut, as well as some of the medium priorities. So basically what I'm presenting to you tonight with this FY16 budget, $821,655 was actually cut from the budget that you're going to see tonight, from the requests from the principals, school managers, and supervisors. So I do want you to know that we do prioritize, but then we don't ask for everything. We know that we need to make sure we're being efficient and fiscally responsible. So I do want you to know that. We will be having a budget hearing. Our budget hearing will be on February 3rd at 6 p.m., and a work session will follow at 7 p.m. The final budget will be voted upon by the board at the February board meeting and submitted to the Talbot County Council on February 19th. We were just notified yesterday that our presentation to the Talbot County Council will be on March 3rd. It's a Tuesday night at 5 o'clock. So that has been some new information that we can include here. Many factors influence our recommendations and my recommendations for this proposed FY16 budget. I would like to take some time to review these factors. As mentioned earlier, enrollment increased this year from last year by 93 students. This number includes pre-K students, although we only did have 7 more pre-K students this year than last year. So I do think that's important to note. The Educational Facility Master Plan projects an additional 40 students for FY16 based on this year's enrollment. So that is also information that will factor into my recommendation. This chart reflects an increase over the last 9 years for our students that receive free and reduced meals. We are currently up to 42% of our students that are farm students. And as you know, that means that we have 4 out of every 10 students that are receiving free or reduced meals. But what I also want you to note that this statistic is even more impactful at the school level when you consider 6 out of every 10 students are farm students at Easton Elementary alone. homeless population has tripled over the same 9-year period. We do not have our numbers for this year, but they are climbing. FY14, we were at 133 students. Over the same 9-year period that our total enrollment has increased by only 3.5%, the number of ELL students has almost doubled. Another trend is the increase at the high school level, which has tripled in the last 4 years. The number of students in 2010 was 24 at the high school, and this year we have a little more than 61 at this point. We have seen an increase in the number of special ed students by 57 students from last year. Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act is unfunded federal law which prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities by any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Talbot County Public Schools currently has 149 students receiving accommodations relating to a disabling condition that's impacting their school performance. It is anticipated this school year we will conclude with approximately 158 students receiving a 504 plan for accommodations, and we do not receive state or federal funding for this programming and accommodations. In order to prepare a budget, you must garner stakeholder input, which we did with parents, community, and staff. I also had several conversations with students about their budget priorities for the future. We received 521 surveys this past fall. We had above average return rate of 15% from our families. Here basically would be the stakeholder input with staff and parents and community as their top 5 priorities for this fiscal 16-year budget. As you can note, they both prioritize salaries and competitive benefits. They also both note technology, and they also both note well-maintained buildings. FY16 recommendations. Please note that I have included a placeholder for a salary increase of 1 step for all staff. Bargaining units are still negotiating at this time. I'm going to begin by detailing by category in the FY16 budget proposal. At this time of the presentation, I'd like for you to take a look at that big 11 by 17 one-pager that Mr. Conley and Ms. Lentz created, which is color-coded so that you can follow along. And I believe we have it online as well. And I will present the categories in the same order as I did the FY15 budget so that we can compare the net changes in our summary. Also, please be mindful that in this FY16 draft budget, it is a product of already $821,655 in request cuts from various departments. So let's begin, as we did with FY15, with transportation. Transportation Department arranges and supervises bus routes, schedules for Talbot County. This includes regular routes, routes for those that are homeless, special education transportation, and in addition, the department provides transportation for services for education and athletic trips. It manages county-owned buses and operates a maintenance facility for the purpose of repair. As in FY15, the increase in the FY16 transportation category reflects an increase in salary, contracted buses, and lease payments. Contracted buses are utilized for athletic events which departure times and staffing issues prevent the use of county-owned buses. At the beginning of this year, a cost increase of contracted buses were received that resulted in a 23% increase in labor rate and 11% increase in mile rate. In addition, increased participation has sometimes resulted in the increase in the number of buses required for athletic transportation. Another factor that's the number of away games and contests, which vary from year to year. With the change in school start times, layover for buses have been reduced. However, hours have increased related to services for special ed, homeless, and alternative education. Reduction in maintenance costs are not expected. Buses must be retired after 15 years. So we do keep our buses for 15 years, and we do an outstanding job using our garage out there and our service people to keep them running. Please note that one bus replacement is in the FY16 capital project request. Another will be in FY17, and 7 will be required by FY18. So we have an aging fleet. The next category is maintenance of plant. I don't know what you call this color. I guess it's kind of fuchsia, purple. The maintenance of plant category includes items that help to provide all employees and students with a safe, secure, clean, and pleasant environment that's conducive to learning. It includes support to provide connections, maintenance, and repair to the schools for data and telecommunication. The only increase in this category is for salary. Maintenance and repair is a high priority. They were included in the request, but we did end up with $14,000 less than the current year's budget, but we need to be mindful of the potential costs of deferring maintenance. Conditions in our school buildings create favorable learning environments in which our children can thrive, and cutting in this category further will not allow us to keep pace with the growing needs and may increase long-term systemic problems and associated costs. Our custodians do an outstanding job keeping our buildings clean and up to date. Operation of plant. This department works to provide all employees and students with a safe environment. Once again, the only increase is salary increase. Again, this custodial staff is truly doing more with less by planning well, maximizing efficiencies, and using team cleaning approaches. Equipment has been purchased to improve efficiencies in cleaning restrooms and floors. The custodial staff was reduced by 1 staff person last year, so we really know that that's not an area we can cut with staffing this year. We are looking at including a number of classroom square footage and the number of teachers when we're looking at cleaning. It's all done by square footage, so that helps us keep that in line. Instructional salaries. As I stated before, I'm recommending some additional instructional positions, an elementary position at Whitemarsh, 2 elementary reading teachers, 2 elementary gifted and talented teachers, and 1 English language learner teacher. It's important to note with these, and some of you may ask why 1 for Whitemarsh is class size and keeping our class size down. The reading teachers, as of first quarter this year, when I received the data, we do have 30% of our students in elementary school not reading on grade level below 3rd grade, and that cannot continue. 2 elementary gifted and talented teachers. We do want to continue to try to make sure all of our children are challenged and identified, and 1 English language learner teacher, and that is due to the growing population and our needs. And we also are going to be including a special education teacher in our budget, but that actually comes in that category. So I wanted you to know that as well. Mid-level administration, we have made cuts in contract services, office supplies, and added an increase for 1 step, which is a net change of $11,602. Administration, we've tried to become more efficient with services and supplies and included 1 salary step. Fixed charges. Fixed charges relate to those employee fringe benefits that I had mentioned before, but it also includes tuition reimbursement, employee retirement, pension, health insurance, Social Security. And prior to FY13, the Maryland State Teachers Pension was actually paid entirely by the state of Maryland. In an effort to reduce the state of Maryland deficit in fiscal year 12, and beyond, the General Assembly passed the House Bill 1801, where a portion of the teachers' pension costs were passed back to the local government. This is a separate appropriation that is in addition to the required maintenance of effort, and the amount for FY16 is $943,073. This is a result of a 7% increase for health insurance. It's also a result of the Affordable Care Act cost, which is approximately $100,000, and a reduction in the available costs from our ESMEC Surplus Health Trust, which I will explain in the next slide. The past 3 years, counting the budget that I'm presenting to you tonight, we have been very fortunate to be in the ESMEC Trust Fund group, and for the past 2 years, last year and this current year, in order to offset a salary increase for staff and to maintain a budget that was fiscally responsible, we were able to use $900,000 from our ESMEC Trust Fund. The problem is, if you continue to do that, then you have less funds the next year, and that's actually what's happened. The maximum available for us in FY16 is $400,000 to be able to use in our ESMEC Trust Fund. I have included that in the budget where we are using this to offset some of the costs from the health insurance, but I do think it's important to note that this cannot always continue. So let's take a close look at health insurance, because it's kind of scary, actually. When you take a look at health insurance, and if you look at the top, that's fiscal year 15. The local cost is approximately $7 million. Amount paid by the ESMEC Trust in FY15 was $900,000. The total cost in FY15 just for health insurance was $7,649,164. If we use the $400 available in the ESMEC Trust for this year's proposed budget, and we expect a 7% health insurance increase, and we know we have to pay the Affordable Care Act cost, then we're looking at a total cost for FY16 of $7,923,156, and that is just health insurance. That is a 46.5% of the total increase of this whole FY16 budget. Next, let's take a look at textbooks and instructional supplies. It's comprised of both school-based expenditures and central office expenditures. School-based expenditures currently support existing programs and provide classroom teachers for what they need. Central office purchases fund new courses and supplementary materials and library and media centers. Because the system has additional students this year, there is money that is required to ensure that they have what they need to be able to learn. This accounts for a portion of the requested increase in expenditures. 30%, 212, of the 6th through 12th graders who participated in the Hour of Code survey indicated that they would like more computer science courses. So in this budget, we have included a computer science CTE, Career and Technology, education pathway. This pathway consists of 4 courses: Foundations of Computer Science, AP Computer Science Principles, AP Computer Science, and Cybersecurity. There is money also in this proposed budget to support the implementation of a new sequence, and that would be AP Physics, which is being requested by many students. We offer physics, but they have expressed this interest. We already have a teacher that's interested. We would need to purchase the resources and the teacher training. When we began the adoption and implementation of Common Core state standards, we indicated that there would be a need to acquire materials, and we've heard that from our teachers. They need more materials. And basically, the vendors of the reading and math textbooks were claiming that they were aligned with the standards, but we knew that they really weren't good quality yet, so we kind of put it off, but it is in this budget this year. And in this budget, we have secondary English revised the 9th and 10th grade courses. We have also shifted the books that we use for 10th and 11th grade down to 9th and 10th grade in English to ensure that the reading has high standards with the standards in our curriculum. And with the FY16 budget, we plan to purchase materials to implement the newly created Common Core aligned grades 11 and 12. Additionally, we're beginning to revise the elementary science curricula, and it requests money to get these programs started. That's about $12,000. The Maryland State Department of Education recommends 20 library books per student. We have cut this in our budget the past 2 years. We have put this back in the budget for FY16. Finally, the FY16 budget maintains a current programming by funding online subscription renewals for Spanish and the purchase of supplementary materials for Algebra 1 and Gifted and Talented, to name a few. That would be textbooks and instructional supplies. Other instructional costs is we did note that we had Performance Matters contract. It wasn't an instructional cost, and we are using Performance Matters. All of our students are taking their assessments online in most grades, and so we moved it to instructional because it really is being used instructionally. Our teachers are able to get reports on their students to be able to determine interventions and enrichments using the data, so it is being used instructionally. It's important to note that in this category, expenditures are also in here for software licenses, contract services, outdoor education, and dual enrollment, subsidizing athletics, technology, hardware, and infrastructure. And we also are requesting some software where we can actually not have to collect all of the computers every time an update comes on. We can do it virtually, which would really help with the manpower. And I think that would be really important. New courses require professional development, and that would be with computer science, AP courses in world history and physics, and also a web-based exam prep site for our advanced placement students. With the implementation of Gateway to Technology in middle schools, interest in robotics has definitely increased all the way down to elementary school. It's really great to see. So we are looking at, for this reason, proposing a fourth course in Project Lead the Way pre-engineering program that is computer integrated manufacturing. This course is designed to provide students with training in 3D software, robotics, and producing 3D models. Pupil Personnel Services provides support for students and families that includes school counseling, health services, alternative programs, mental health, and student service workers. By negotiating a multi-year contract with Naviance, which is a college and career-ready program at the middle school and high school, Play-Doh, which is a computer-assisted credit recovery for our students in alternative ed that need credit recovery, which is approximately 118 students do use that program, and Bridges, which is a career explanation program for elementary schools. We have reduced our cost in this area with this multi-year contract by $17,165. Our FY16 budget includes a step increase for personnel. We want to also consider the safety of our students, and our first priority, which is our first priority, and we're requesting a school resource officer for Easton High School. Talbot County Public School is one of only 2 counties in the state of Maryland that does not have an SRO in their larger high schools around. And we definitely believe that this professional will bolster the many security initiatives that we already have established. Special education. The cost of supporting special education is shared between federal and local funding. As mentioned before, we have increased by 57 students, and we are in need for an additional teacher. So let's take a look. Here's the big picture. Here's the comparison of net changes from this year to next year. And this is just your unrestricted operating budget. And I will actually come back to this towards the end as a summary. Capital projects. We do have several capital projects listed in your budget book. Student laptops, as you can see, for the $200,000, and that is for the incoming freshmen. At this time, if you turn that sheet over, the capital projects are on the back. The Moton roof replacement. Addressing the roofing problem at Moton is very critical, and we should not and cannot wait for renovation for this project to be funded. We do know that we did ask for funding from our capital project and capital improvement plan, and we did go to an appeal. They heard my appeal. Thank you to Bruce Horvath and Gail Seacrest for going along with me. They are recommending the full funding, and it does go to Public Works next week, so we should hear something on that. By funding the roof replacement project now, we'll eliminate current water leaks, prevent further deterioration of the building envelope, and provide a healthy environment for our students. We will also eliminate recurring costs for maintenance, and more information relative to the status of this will be at further board meetings once we find out. Easton Elementary School ed specs. We're looking at ed specs and a feasibility study for the renovation of Easton Elementary School, and that's coming up soon. Describe the proposed educational programs, activity areas, and requirements, and the performance expected in this proposed capital project. It's important to note that the state gives preference to the rehabilitation of existing schools to ensure that facilities in established neighborhoods are of equal quality as new schools. Feasibility studies are required to justify the replacement or abandonment of existing schools. The feasibility study must include a 40-year life cycle. Comparison of each renovation and addition, replacement are all considered. It also includes lists of major and minor educational program deficiencies related to each building. And as you remember, we are still working on getting that funding from the capital improvement plan, so we'll see how that goes. The next thing that I have here is White Marsh. We are requesting 2 portable classrooms be put at White Marsh. That school actually increased by 38 students this year. The building utilization has increased to 94%, and we expect this enrollment trend to continue. The earliest realistic expectation for any kind of expansion to that building would not be until 2027. In order to accommodate the increased enrollment and provide appropriate education, I'm recommending 2 portables. I'm going to jump down to the school bus. Maryland, we are required again, 15 years, so we are looking to replace a bus this year. We had the cargo van in last year's budget. We cut it. We're putting it back in. We know that the moving van that we're looking to replace was purchased in 1995. This vehicle, while used primarily by maintenance department, moves a large bulk of items and is also used by our schools to support the bands and the performing programs. And in addition to the transportation department, they use the van also to transport all those supplies for Echo Hill. And while we perform routine maintenance on our vehicles, sometimes we just need a new one. And Easton High School wireless cabling, that school was done several years ago, and we do need to update some of the wiring at Easton High School, which is why that is in the capital projects. Talk a little bit about debt service, public facilities bond, and the bond at the, once we build a school, you just don't pay for it and move on. You keep paying for it. So basically, that's what we're talking about here. It's a fund used to account for the bond payments of principal and interest made by the Talbot County government on behalf of Talbot County Public Schools for the renovation of our school buildings. Only a county government may issue bonds to finance any or all costs of construction or improvement. Boards of education are required to disclose and report these amounts. So this would be our debt service that's listed in your FY16 budget. Expected revenues. And let's begin by taking a look at the definition of maintenance of effort. We talk about it a lot, but let's look at it. It is a state law that sets funding floor, and please note that it is the funding floor. It is the minimum for county governments. It requires local jurisdictions to spend at least the same amount per student as the previous fiscal year. Maintenance of effort is calculated on student enrollment for the current year. So for FY16, we are actually using September 30th, 2014 enrollment. So please note that. More students result in more money based on a formula definition. So let's take a look at what we think, and I'm going to say we, but I'm going to say Mr. Conley, projects. So increased number of eligible students for projected MOE calculation. And we're looking at September 30th, 2014. The reason there's a 0.5 is we did have a half-time student. So just letting you know. This does not include pre-K. And as of September 30th, 2014, they would use this number, and this would be what we're projecting would be the maintenance of effort for the coming year. So let's take a look at that. If you look at the projected maintenance of effort summary, FY15 was $34,546,100. Additional FY16, this is the increase that we're asking for. So the projected maintenance of effort, excuse me, not the additional that we're asking for, but the additional maintenance of effort due to the enrollment. This is the projected maintenance of effort for FY16, $35,128,767. And again, that is due to the increase in enrollment. So if you take a look at where we spend our money, we really spend our money on our people. We believe in our people. Our people do a fantastic job educating our students. But I think it's important to note that our fixed charges and benefits are constantly increasing over the years. And I just think that this is an interesting chart to take a look at to see that that's really where we're spending our money is on our people. And if we cut our people, we increase our class size, we increase times on buses, we increase lunch lines, we lose a lot of those intervention services that we need. So in summary, for FY16 budget, at this time I'm recommending a 3.7% increase above maintenance of effort for FY16 school year. This increase requested is $1,303,910. Please note, again, that 46.5% of this increase is health insurance. And I can't go without expressing my heart, and that's on the wall. That is why we're here. We are here for the children of Talbot County Public Schools. In summary, I would like to stress the fact that our county government provides the bulk of school funding, 76% of our school funding. We will continue to work with our county council to help them understand the needs of our school district, and that is what I do on a daily basis. Economic pressures at both the state and the county level are driving cost containment and budget cuts that impact nearly every public entity. We are expecting at least 41 more students next year, and with our growing numbers of children who struggle in poverty and other challenges with learning, we cannot do more with less. With a maintenance of effort budget, year after year, our resources are not keeping pace with our needs. These combined pressures complicate the process of preparing this budget that is fiscally responsible to our community, but that does not compromise our high standards to educational excellence. We have streamlined our operations to channel maximum resources to support teaching and learning. We have implemented zero-based budgeting, which has had a significant positive impact in aligning resources to our goals. And we are in the process of working on our strategic goals so that we are able to actually budget for a plan. And we're in the process of that. Despite these measures, we have had to make tough choices. So the budget that I present to you tonight, there were tough choices that had to be made. Every funding decision in my final budget proposed was based upon three critical priorities: sustaining our excellence as a district in all the areas that we have done a good job with, investing in our valuable people, the people you see in this room, the people that are not in this room. They are so valuable to the education of our children, and accelerating student growth to make sure that our children truly are college and career ready, and that every child's needs are met. I have listened to the staff. I have listened to the community when creating this budget. Lower class size and support services allows for teachers to provide instruction to meet students' needs, which is why I'm asking for additional staff. Investing in our people and keeping our salaries competitive on the shore by asking for a step increase, and it may change. We're in the middle of negotiations. It is a placeholder, but I do believe it's important to note. All of our children must be able to read by the end of third grade, and then they may begin to read to learn. Last school year, At the end of last school year and the beginning of this year, 30%, I'm not satisfied. We have a lot of work to do. This requires state-of-the-art technology and sufficient classroom resources, which is why I'm asking for the additional instructional materials and equipment. We cannot do more with less. We must strive to move from good to better and then to be our best. Our strategic planning process will be our roadmap to success, but it will take resources. As I've said before, and I will continue to say, good, better, best, never let it rest until your good is your better and your better is your best, and I will not rest until we are our best. Thank you, and I'll take any questions you may have at this time.
Okay, any questions for Kelly? Kelly, could you explain, I know we've already discussed this, with the increase in the health care insurance, a part of that is the fine or additional fee we got hit with the Affordable Health Care Act. Can you explain that for everyone per person? What that?
Yes, the Affordable Care Act came out this year where all entities must pay a certain amount, and I believe it's $41. Thank you, Charlie. $41 per person that is insured. So it's not just our employees. If I'm a family of 5 or a family of 3 and they're all under my insurance, each one is that amount. And we are mandated to pay that this year, and it is not funded in any way.
And that's a big chunk of that increase, too.
It's approximately $100,000. It's a little less.